All right. So let's now try to trace very quickly about the two method calls. Let me go back here to Eclipse, and then let me double click on test member. Remember, number 4 is the one we did previously. Let me simply put a breakpoint in line number 39 over here. Okay, over here. And then I'm going to launch the debugger. And then I'll do the tracing between debugger and also iPad side by side, like before. Okay, so in this case, we will complete a picture about tracing your object-oriented programming. Right click, and then you would say debug as JUnit test over here. Okay, switch to the debug perspective. All right, so now we are right before we try to execute the creation of Alan and also Mark, right? And let me go back here to iPad. Okay, so I try to put all the relevant classes together. So you can see this is really the complete view for the member class. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. You can see the member here. And also, let me remind you very quickly, we got different section for the various artifacts for the class, right? Let's do that very quickly. You can see this part over here are all the private attributes. And remember, they define the structure of each objects instantiated from the member class at the runtime. And also, we got over here, so this guy over here. So, sorry, let me just do it again. Because I'm only including one constructor, but the other 3 constructor, I simply left them out. But you can see that from your Eclipse projects. So that's the constructor. And as we just spoke about, we also got Mutator and also accessor, right? So accessor, we got gain weights, gain height, get weights, get heights, and also the get BMI report. So this part over here is the accessors. Okay, let me do a little bit better. Okay. Okay, so that's the accessors. Okay, and finally, we got only a single mutator. In general, you can get as many as you like. So this is the mutator. Right, so these are all the 4 components you really meant to have for every class that you define. You got attributes, you got constructor, as many as you like, and also accessors and also mutators, also as many as you like. All right, let's now take a look at the test case over here. We're going to create Alan and Mark. Right, these 2 lines I have already traced them in detail in the previous video, so I'm not going to waste your time. Okay, the only thing I want to show you is something that's new. What I did previously was to draw the memory diagram like this. However, as I promised, we're going to do a much more abstract view of the drawing. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So you can see I already prepared some box over here. So this is how you can visualize each object that's created at the runtime. So the structure of, first of all, you can see there's a box over here, and the title of the box should really correspond to the name of some class, for example, member over here. And then the structure for the box will be left column and also right column, pretty much like what you saw in the Eclipse debugger. And the left column over here, how many attributes you should really include depends on how many you declare in the source class, right? You can see over here, since we declare ID type, balance, name, weights, and heights. So we got exactly these 6 attributes over here. And then on the right column here, I should leave them empty to begin with. But I should really fill in the values as you update the values for each individual attributes. Okay, so that's just the template, right? So that's exactly what I meant by the class actually define the template for your objects at a runtime. So this will be the template for the member class. Okay, so after these 2 lines, let me just now try to do it. I'll try to use different colors for these 2 different objects. So let's say for Alan, we're going to create, I'm going to use a blue, and also for Mark, I'm going to use pink. Okay, we got 2 objects over here. So what that means is I'm going to make 2 copies of the member box over here, the objects. So I'm not going to draw the memory anymore, the memory diagram. So I'm just going to use this box over here. Okay, so 1 box over here. Okay, that'll be the right size. So I got another one over here. Okay, I got 2 objects over here, right? And let's make it even more obvious to you. So this one should be the blue objects. and this one over here should be the pink objects. But they share the same structure for sure. And I don't need this skeleton anymore, so I can just delete it, right? Just to make it neater. Okay, I can make these two a little bit bigger. Okay, and I can put a template over here. All right, so let's see. So after this line over here, we basically created Alan. So Alan is actually going to store the address of the blue objects. So visually speaking, Alan is pointing to this object over here, as we said before. And then it's going to be 85 for the weights and 175 for the heights. So 85 for the weights and also 175 for the heights. And all the other attributes should be the default value. I'll simply leave them blank just for now. Okay. And then we also got another, the second object here, it will be Mark. Mark is going to store the address of this particular object over here. So visually speaking, Mark is actually going to point to this particular object here. So it doesn't matter where you actually touch the box using the arrow. So as long as it's pointing to the objects, you're okay. Okay, and then it's going to be weights will be 101, and also the heights will be 181. Right? You can see these two objects here, their structure are identical. However, the instance specific value for the attributes are different. For example, weights is 85 here versus weight is 101 over here, right? We also mentioned that previously. All right, so after these two lines, we actually got these two objects over here. Everything is good. And let's now understand about how we can invoke method over here. Let's start with these two lines over here. Let's say Alan.getWeights over here versus Mark.getWeights over here. Okay, so you can think about over here. First of all, I need to explain quickly about the dots over here. The dot notation over here, okay, I mentioned before, it's like an off, right? You basically try to say invoke the getWeights method of the Alan objects. That's one way to think of it. Another way to think of it is once you get to this the more advanced level for the EECS program, you'll learn about something called dereferencing operator. I'll just mention that quickly. Dereferencing operator, meaning that when I say Alan dot something over here, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to say, since it's a dot operator, I'm going to go into Alan to see what address is actually being stored in Alan, and then go to that particular object and apply whatever that's to the right hand side of the dot. In this case, Alan over here, after dereferencing it, is going to refer to this particular object, right? You can think about the dot here is really the pointer over here. That's another way to think of it, right? So that's the dereferencing operator that you can actually learn about. All right, so let's see. Try to look at these two method calls. So what they're basically calling the same method, getWeights and also getWeights, right? Let's try this. When I say getWeights over here, and the context object is actually Alan. So you can think about Alan over here is the context objects. On the other hand, when I say Mark dot getWeights over here, so Mark over here is just another context object, just another one. Even though I'm calling the same methods, getWeights and getWeights, but the context objects are different. So that means when I call the dot over here, dereferencing them, I'm going to go for either this object here or this object over here. So that's why the return result will be different. Okay, let's go a little bit further into this. Okay, and now I can go to the get BMI report. The idea will be very similar. Let's say when I execute this particular method call, let's say Alan.getWeights, this one here, right? So Alan dot is going to refer to this particular object over here. It's going to refer to that. Okay, and then when I go to the getWeights methods, so you can see the getWeights it's actually over here. Okay, let me make it a little bit bigger here. It's the getWeights. And at the moment, the context object this is going to be Alan. So you can think about when I'm trying to invoke this particular method over here, Alan is the context object. So you can imagine that this over here is simply just replaced by Alan. for this particular call. So what I will return is Alan.weights. So Alan.weights is going to return 85. So that's why it's going to be 85 matching 85. So that's why this test will actually pass. All right. Similarly, when I try to call the same method get weights, right? When I try to do that, let me use this. Okay, when I try to say the get weights, so I'm also trying to call the same method over here, but now this is a different context object, right? The context object should be the mark. So that means over here, this object in this particular call is going to be mark. So it will be mark.weights. So mark dot and then weights is going to return 101. So that's why 101 will be matching. All right. Hopefully you can see how it works so far. So I think the main point for you to understand really is whenever you say some objects and then say dot, it's really like the pointer I'm drawing over here. Or if you want to get more technical, it's called a dereferencing operator. But later on, we're going to see you can actually use multiple dots in a single expression. That's something we'll discuss either next week or the week after. Okay. All right. So that's about how you can invoke. As long as you understand how to really invoke the method given a particular context object, either Alan or Mark or other context objects, you're pretty much understanding everything. Okay. But let me just finish the complete tracing here quickly. And let's say we try to execute this line. When we say Alan.get BMI report, so now the context object is Alan over here. So we're going to go to the get BMI report over here. So that's the method. However, every occurrence of this, the context object is now going to be replaced by Alan. For example, here would be Alan.heights, and here would be Alan.weights. Make sense? Okay. So now, if you see the calculation, it's going to be Alan.heights, Alan.heights is going to be 175, right? So let me just write it down. So it's going to be 175, and also Alan.weights is going to be 85, as we said before. And then you will just do the calculation accordingly, and then you will just execute this part of the code about if statements and do the interpretation. For this part, I don't need to bother you because we know how to trace this just using 175 and also 85, right? So you will eventually get this particular result over weights and also 27.8. Let's go further, just for your understanding here. When I try to execute this particular assertion, so now I'm also trying to invoke get BMI report, the same method, but now the context object is mark, right? So I'm trying to invoke the same method over here, but now the this over here is no longer Alan anymore. It's now mark, right? You can see mark is the context object. So it's going to be mark instead. And then when I say mark.heights, so mark.heights is going to be 181, right? So I'm going to get 181. And mark.weight is going to be 101. So you can see everything is going to be calculated using 181 and 101 accordingly. So that is why you will see it's actually going to be BMI 30.8 and also obese, right? Just by calling the same block of code actually does not guarantee you will get the same result, because depending on what the context object is, you can see the attribute this.heights, and this may either be replaced by Alan if Alan is the context object, like in this case, or this.heights may be replaced by Mark, in which case Mark will be the context object, right? You can see that that's really critical for you to see. All right, let's now go a little bit further. We're almost done. Okay, over here. And then we can now go to change the weights by 13. You can see 13 over here. We're basically calling the same method with just the same input value, right? You can see just calling the same. However, you can see the context object is really different. Alan is here and Mark is over here, right? So calling this one over here, you can see, let me just use, be consistent with the color. Calling this line over here, this will just be Alan. So we are calling the change the weights by over here, and this will be Alan. And then the weights will be minus 13. The units will be minus 13 over here. So Alan.weights plus equal minus 13, right? So Alan.weights, plus, actually it will be minus 13. So that's why it's going to be decreased by 13. So that will give you 72. Okay, agree? And then what about mark.changeWeightsBy? If I try to do this line over here, so now I'm calling the same method also with 13. However, the context object is now mark. So I'm calling the same method over here, make it bigger. And also I'm also passing minus 13 over here. However, the context object this is now mark, not Alan anymore. So when I say mark.weight over here, so when I say mark.weight, that's going to change this by subtracting 13, right? So now let's see this. So this subtracting 13 will be 88. Okay. So after this, you can see the consequence is after we have done these two Mutator method call, after these two, when we try to calculate get BMI report again, you can now I don't need to trace again, but you can see when we call the get BMI report with different context object again, Alan versus Mark, is going to give us different result. When we call this one here, where the context object is Alan, in that case we're going to use the value 72 and also 175 to do the BMI report. When we try to say mark.getBMI report, the context object is Mark. So that means we're going to use 88 and also 181. Okay, agree? Okay, so that's this one over here, pink. We're going to use 88 and also 181 for the result. All right, guys, I hope that's okay for you. I think I try not to get too repetitive, just to do enough so that you can see exactly how we can call the methods. I think the most important principle really is you have to know which method you're calling, for example, and also what the context object is. And then, assuming that you already visualize each object structure over here, all you got to do is to, whenever you see dot over here, you're just going to use the arrow over here for the navigation, and then to change the attribute values accordingly, right? All right, one more thing I would like to do to before I end the video, which is to really show you very quickly about Eclipse. Okay, so let me just go to Eclipse, and then you can see we got Alan and Mark. Very good. And let's say go step over. You can see Alan and Mark over here. If you compare the address over here, 3D whatever, and also Mark, it will be 3B whatever. So they are different objects for sure. And you can expand the objects over here. You can see, so you can see they got exactly the same structure, right? And you can see, for example, height will be 175 versus 188. Okay, so 181. So they're different. I want to show you just one particular step into, right? Let me just skip over the get weights. Let me show you get BMI report very quickly, right? Let me just go step over. So now I'm in line 44, right before I try to execute get BMI report. You can see now Alan is the context objects, right? One thing I would like you to do for me, okay? Let's see here. You can see for Alan, let's see the address. Is actually, let me copy that down on my iPad, and then let me tell you the exercise I would like you to do. 3D 121 dB and also 3. All right, so please on your diagram, if you're doing some similar exercise, you can put this address over here just around the objects over here, right? And then I'll show you what I want to do. Okay, can we also do the address for Mark as well? So it will be 3B and also 07A0 D6. Okay, so you can see that's the address for Mark. So we got different addresses over here, right? So now I'll show you how that could be useful. So now let's try to step into. If I say step into, I'm going to step into this particular method call, right? However, when I get to get a BMI report, I ought to know what this is, right? Remember in the code over here, if you look at get BMI report, in the definition for the method, we actually got this. However, what's this between the method call? This may either be Alan or maybe Mark, or it can be some other objects, depending on what the context object is, right? Remember. So I would like to do this to show you. If I say step into, okay, if I say step into over here, basically it will correspond to when I calculate this particular line, I know that the context object is simply just Alan. What I said to you before was when we get to the get BMI report over here, we'll simply replace every occurrence of this by just Alan. But how do you see that in Eclipse? So that's something I want to show. Remember this address over here, 3D121 DB3, right? Now you're in the get BMI report, and then this is really the context object. 3D101 DB3, that's Alan. All right, guys, I think that's a very, very important detail for you to connect between paper tracing and also Eclipse debugger tracing. All right, so now once we know that this is this, and they can see height is 175, that's that's for sure Alan, and also 85, right? You can double check that. All right, I'm good with that, and then for the rest, you can simply trace by yourself. Let me simply step return over here. Okay, so now I'm basically now at the end of line number 44. So let me say step over. So now what if I try to say step into again? So now you can see the context object will be mark. What's the address for mark? According to our record, it's going to be 3B07A0D6, something like that, right? So now if I try to step into again, if you look at this, right, you can see currently this is really this address here for sorry. So in the previous one, when we get to the get BMI report, the this is really the Allen address. But now if I say step into again, you can see this over here, 3B07A0D6. You can check. So this is exactly the address for mark. So you can see that this, the context object, is just different. That's really important to see what the context object is when you try to make a method call. And then if you expanded this over here, you can see we got weights and different, and also we got height. That's exactly what Mark's measures are. All right, and I also don't need to do the rest. You know how to do it. You can step over and try to play with the expressions if you wish. All right, so let me step out of it. Okay, we're pretty much done. And then you can also try to do change the weights by. Let's try to do that very quickly. You can see the current, let me take a look at here. You can see Alan and Mark, right? As soon as I say step over, what's going to be changed? Since Alan is the context object, only the weights for Alan will be changed. So if I say step over, you can see only the weights over here for Alan has been changed. You can see Eclipse very cleverly highlights the attribute that have been changed, not for Mark. On the other hand, if I say step over again, only the weights for Mark, which is the context objects, will be changed. Only that, not for Alan. If I say step over again, you can see only the weights that's under Mark will be changed, right? Hopefully you can see that too. All right, I think that'll be it about tracing the code. I kind of really showed to you completely using Debugger and also using the paper. I'll try to really get used to both, and that will definitely help you develop your OO programs for the rest of the semester.